Okay, we're very proud of this room, by the way. This is a result of our recent remodel. Had a couple of bond measures over the last few years, so in terms of innovation, that's one of a couple of the big things for us. And in getting the bond measures, got space like this done that had previously been part of the library here, had been part of the classrooms here, had been a swing space, had been a closet. But one of the things that Jill wanted to do when we did our last round of renovations was to ensure that we had a very nice space up on the third floor that looked out on the valley. And so we are very proud of our community room here. Let me just quickly, very quickly, because I think we have some folks who may not know Cerro Coso that well, just very quickly do a very high level overview. If you're not familiar with Cerro Coso overall, our service area extends all the way up to Mammoth. Actually, beyond that, we have a facility at Mammoth, but we actually serve Bridgeport and Colville. So by the time you get up there, and then all the way down south to Tehachapi, where we recently opened a campus down in Tehachapi in the last 3 years, and also down at Edwards Air Force Base. So we put all that together. That's over 18,000 square miles. As Jill is fond of saying, though it's a very sparse 18,000 square miles, it's the largest service area of any community college in California and in the nation. And her famous saying is, we have more critters than people. And that is true if you go on the other side of the mountains. There are at least 10 community colleges in that same space. So we serve all that entire area. And a couple things. You may or may not know, I mean, this area has for a long time been not a very diverse area, but Cerro Coso serves, starting last year was the first year that we now serve more Hispanic students than we serve white students. We serve way more women students than we serve men students, 58% to 58% female students. In addition, one of the unusual things about Cerro Coso is the very large number of part-time students. So community colleges that are close to Cal States or close to UCs oftentimes have students that are 18, 19 years old and that are attending there full-time in order to go to their four-year school full-time. We don't have that. We have students a very, very large number of students who are part-time. And that means it takes them not 2 years or 3 years to complete a degree, but on average, 7 to 8 years to complete their program and award with us. So they're long time, they become practically family by the time that they're done here. Another key factor for us is that over a third of our students are first generation students. Do you know what that means, first generation? That means that they are the first members of their families to go to college. And what's important about that is that those students don't necessarily have what we call the college knowledge. They don't have any role models at home who said, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, here's what a major is, here's how you take classes, here's how you study, and that kind of thing. And what we're finding more and more, the job that we're having to do more and more is when we intake students, is that we need to guide them through the process. Way different than when I went to school. Let's talk about myself. When I went to school, you kind of enjoyed taking different classes and you kind of figured out how to navigate through the system. It is very difficult for students these days to navigate through the system. And so one of our big changes in the last 3 or 4 years has been adopting what's been called a guided pathways approach. And I don't know if you're familiar with that term or not. It's a term that's come down from the state chancellor's office. We're part, of course, of the larger system at the state. And guided pathways is a set of practices where we help students navigate through the programs better. Instead of just turning in an application and waiting, we have to be there now we want to be there now to say, here's your next step, and then do a lot of following up. And that's very intensive work. But that's part of a generational change. And we know Shakespeare doesn't change, and we know that secants and cosines don't change. There is some change in our CTE areas, but interestingly, one of the big changes in our profession, in this business, are the students. The students continue to change kind of out from underneath us, and we're having to find out ways to keep them on track, keep them get on a pathway, stay on the pathway, and then get through to graduation. And over the past 4 or 5 years, we've been very successful at that. Last year, our CTE programs, our career technical programs, gave out 379 awards. That is up from 218 awards just 3 years before. So we're finding ways to get students into programs, staying in programs, and through programs to completion, where they can go then and get the kinds of jobs and be prepared to get jobs out in the real world. Our top awards, business administration, always is at the top for the workforce. Business administration, vocational nursing is always, we always give a large number of awards for nursing. Administration of justice, and surprisingly, over the last couple of years, computer information systems has moved into second place. And that's a program that we have recently reinvigorated through, we used to have one computer information systems award that did a lot of things, a degree. But we've split it into two, one that's focused on information technology, and one that's focused on cybersecurity. And we're one of the first community colleges in the state to develop that cybersecurity program, and we're now seeing the fruits of it, students starting to graduate. And we're having a hard time graduating students because they get 3 or 4 classes into the program and contractors out there pick them off. So that's hard enough to keep the students on track, doubly hard enough when they're being poached by the community. In terms of certificates, so that's overall the degrees. In terms of certificates, short-term workforce training, child development. We have a child development program. Students can start with us and go through the entire levels of the program to be a site supervisor. But the lowest level certificate is the one that we give out the most. An information technology certificate is highly popular with students, as well as a short-term office clerk certificate, which is a certificate students come without any, we assume no basic knowledge, and they learn all about Word, they learn all about Excel, they learn all about Access, and they're ready to go to work in a business. For Cerro Coso, in terms of our innovation, I mentioned cybersecurity. We've got a couple of new programs that we are focusing on and trying to bring up. Cloud computing is one of them, and I don't know, is there a cloud computing program out in the state anywhere?
There are some. It's specific. You want to do a general one. Google has one. Amazon has one. So there's more of a general cloud computing with specific tracks.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got here we've got sort of a computer information base, and we're spinning off various programs from that and seeing what works well with us in our particular area. So we got cloud computing. That's new on the horizon. We've got cybersecurity, which is now into its 2nd and 3rd year. We have a variety of other programs that we're looking at. You want to give us just a couple?
Sure. We've got medical billing and coding, which we think is going to be super full soon. We've got an associate degree of nursing coming up. I'm drawing a blank. There's some other ones. Addictions counseling.
Process
Technician and industrial automation. So there's a few that are coming up, a few good workforce short-term certificates to get them out and into your employment.
And our biggest challenges right now is, to be quite honest, our own system office is our biggest challenge at the moment. The rate of change going on in Sacramento is I will just say tremendous. I've been here 24 years, and what's going on at the state right now is mind-boggling. Every year it seems like there's a brand new initiative that's come down, and equity. We're all being, I mean, that's society-wide, urged and incentivized in a variety of ways to close achievement gaps for historically underrepresented groups. There's a new funding formula that has had a very rocky rollout, to say the least, and it's made it very difficult for us to even guess what our budget is going to be from year to year, and that makes it difficult. And then just last week, we got a whole new set of rules on climate change and sustainability. So we're going to have to reckon with those also, and I know you probably feel our pain out there on that. So keeping up with the system office is kind of one of our big challenges. Another one of our big challenges across our big service area right now is our population. Our population is, for the most part, not growing, and to that extent, for every degree that we give, that means there's one less customer out there for us to give a degree to or to continue to serve. And so our adult participation rate has been fairly good, higher than our sister colleges, and that means we've been serving our communities well, but that also means that we're kind of burning through the students that we have. So those are a couple of things that are putting downward pressure on the college at the moment and presenting challenges for us. But given the guided pathways work that we're doing and a reinvigoration of our workforce areas, and Maura, by the way, this is Maura Morabito. If you haven't met her, you need to go meet her. She's our CTE dean, and we are constantly looking for ways that we can start programs that put students to work. And that's throughout the service area, from Colville all the way down to Edwards and over to Tehachapi. And we're very, very serious about that. That's the work that we do. So I don't know if you have any questions or what the protocol here is, or whether I just hand it back over to Richard at this point.
Thank you. So now I have a City of Ridgecrest update.
Shorter. Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the Kern EDC for having this conference, and I want to thank everybody for their time, taking the time to come out today. I am Melissa Anchetta, City of Ridgecrest. I am in the Economic Development Department as an analyst. Here at the City of Ridgecrest, we've got a couple of projects going on. One of them is we're working on EV chargers. We're looking towards the future, and we know that Inyo Kern has a Tesla charger, and we're trying to see if we can have, again with the environmental impact, if we could possibly have EV chargers, as we can entice people off 395 in order to kind of stir up a little bit more commerce. If people stop for an hour or 2 hours in a shopping center that we have, then they can spend the money here in town, and that always, helps the city. And so we're working with a couple of small businesses. The city's looking into a grant as well that we could possibly apply for, and so that we would have one maybe at the city. And that is currently in the works. But one of the projects that we do have a confirmation on, and it's one of the bigger projects that I'm working on, is Buxton Analytics. And so the City of Ridgecrest, along with the RACVB, the IWV EDC, and the Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce, we have all worked in collaboration, and we have this analytical tool that this company offers, Buxton, and they really will be able to give us information on our population and our demographics. So we look at where people in the community are spending their money. We have demographics on what the base looks like, which is the highest driving job center here in Ridgecrest. And we want to focus on quality of life. And so in order to entice people from going out of town to spend money or from spending money online, we will use Buxton and their analytics to help us kind of pinpoint what we can do here in Ridgecrest to enrich the city, to raise the quality of life. It also will help us with our small businesses as well, due to the fact that we can give, say, a retail company here in Ridgecrest, if they are interested in seeing who buys online versus in-store in a brick and mortar, they can look at competition numbers, they can look at people in their type of demographic customer, somebody who is more likely to go into store and see where they're spending money. And that kind of information is useful. I think having the knowledge base out there is useful in any sense. And we're also looking at attraction for corporate chains. So we do have a lot of people from out of the state, out of the county who come into Ridgecrest working on the base, and they recognize these brand names, they recognize the Walmarts and the Marshalls, and they're attracted to places like that, and the Starbucks, and so we can provide these numbers to these companies and entice them to come, and again, that enriches the quality of life here in Ridgecrest, and that's one of the main focuses that we have in the Economic Development Department. And then we're also looking into certain niche businesses. I've got a couple of potential business owners who are looking to open up a business, but they're not exactly sure what they want, and this information will help us provide to them, hey, we have a hole in our entertainment for families, and so where do families go at night? Do they go out of town? Do they want to go see a movie? Do they want to go bowling? And so we're looking at things like that, and I think that this project that we're working on will help kind of break that gap. And so that's one of the main things. And I want to thank everyone again for your time. And thank you.
Pass out some copies of this. I'll just start with you. Update on economic update. We're passing out a flyer from, it's called Atlas, or Headlight, excuse me. This is for Kern County. So again, when you see Bakersfield, that's the MSA, which is the whole county. And what we're seeing is about pretty moderate growth over the last year. If you look month of I believe it's December or November to the previous year, we're growing at about 2%. Of course, growth is good, but what do those jobs pay, right? I mean, so the concern we do have, especially with the oil downturn, jobs lost, paying 80,000 to 90,000 new jobs, not creating the same level in terms of wage level. And so we're following personal income as well. In terms of how Kern County's doing, on the top 100 metros, we're number 4 in the country for growth in healthcare jobs. We're number 2 for energy. Obviously the industry's coming back, but also includes mining like Rio Tinto, Golden Queen and others, and 6 in the country for construction. So that's pretty positive. The concern, as we all know, is some of the issues we're dealing with Sacramento. And for instance, this week, the SB 246, which is the severance tax on oil and gas, was reintroduced. As we're all out there, I think many of us know this, but if you don't, we already have 3 or 4 other taxes on oil and gas. So when someone says we don't have a severance tax, that's true, but we have other taxes, royalty, inventory, and the ground tax. So we have to explain, look, we're still the industry's tax. If this passes, by far and away, will be the most heavily taxed industry in the country will be in California. And we have to make this about mobility, right? Create these jobs. You don't necessarily need a PhD. You can make 80 to 90,000. And we talk about energy independence. So would you rather get your oil from California, which, by the way, 95% of the oil produced in California in the 80s was used. Now it's we import 60% today, where before it was 5%. That's Saudi Arabia. Talk about human rights. Talk about women can't drive there, right? I mean, and also the emissions actually are greater if you're importing that oil taking it here, idling in the port. So anyway, we all know this, but it affects the whole county, right? This area right here is not an oil-rich area, but obviously the services, county services and the like, the industry is really critical. And we ran a stat that 70% of economic activity in the county is driven by oil prices. So as we diversify, that number will decrease. Sigma, I know Supervisor Gleason probably talk about that, with the impacts of Sigma, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act 2020, agriculture, right, beyond agriculture, all types of development. And so as we move forward, I think Kern County, we are the energy, we talk about energy, we have renewable energy. I'm not sure if Sacramento knows the story about all the investment, and we are the renewable energy capital of the country too. So we all have to be those ambassadors and not assume that folks know the story. The good news is, as we diversify, we're seeing a real increase in activity in the startup arena. Kelly says it's because of his work, but I think it's because of all of our work, right, Kelly?
I think it's because of everything.
Okay. If you saw Inc. magazine, again, it says Bakersfield, that's Kern County. We were a top 30 surge region in terms of net job creation and startup businesses and entrepreneurial activity. Also at economy.com, we were ranked number 5 out of 395 regions for startup net new jobs created by companies less than a year old. We know that 80 to 90% of job growth in the community is from young firms. So yes, we have all types of sizes of firms, but because of the ebbs and flow in the economy, the larger firms hire and then tend to lay off, and so startups create 80 to 90% of new jobs in your community. So I think it's really critical that we focus on that. And that's why Kern EDC, we partner with JP Lake, with C Corps Foundation on KITE, which is the Kern Initiative for Talent and Entrepreneurship. The new website's called gokite.org. It's not just about physical spaces for startup, it's about mentorship, it's about funding, and I know many of the communities are starting co-work facilities or have them, but it's also about the companies in there, as well as how we all work together to grow those firms. And so we will be launching formally in the next month or two, but several of those meetings will be out in East Kern. The last one was in Edwards Air Force Base. And so this is a county-wide initiative because there's so much potential out in East Kern. The innovation we see, I know, and Justin in Kernville, where's Justin? Oh. Justin, he's the Kern River Valley representative, but he started a firm called Fire Vision, left his high-paying job, right, in San Francisco, and starting, he won 59 days of code, which the Bitwise folks initiated, and his company uses drone technology to monitor forest fires. So we're excited, follow his story, because this is the potential we have to solve worldwide problems, not just Kern County problems. So, and if you're down, you still have the co-work facility in Kernville. It's 100 yards from the brewery. What more could you ask for? He has an Airbnb on top of the co-work. So take a look. A couple other events coming forward. We're hosting State of the County on January 29th. Tickets are still available at the Kern County Fairgrounds. And the Economic Summit, Kern Economic Summit, is on March the 11th. Symposium, we also host, I know we've had several East Kern representatives, schools and communities. That's on April 29th. So thank you again, and feel free to ask me questions before or after. So let's see who's next on Gavia, I don't believe, is anyone here from Gavia? Okay, well, I guess, Kelly, are you going to come up here?
Yeah, I'll stand back here.
Well, let me give you the microphone then.
I can't speak loud enough?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you, Richard. And since I'm up here, I might as well just come up here now. Just going to give everybody a chance to look at the back of the room. But thank you for the startup information, and it has been really good. As a matter of fact, the Small Business Development Center, which has a similar footprint beyond Kern County, very similar to Cerro Coso Community College. So we serve Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties. Looks like last year we're going to work with companies that have started 53 businesses. And to go back 4 or 5 years, our goal that we achieved back then was around 24. And it is because of all the startup energy that is happening in Kern and all the work done by everybody that is coming to referrals to us and other entities. One case example is, I know Richard and Kedc talk a lot about an app that is going on in startup. It's called Start It Up. And our first webinar this year, this will be our 8th year of doing webinars, will be on the Start It Up app. If you're interested, it is mostly a kind of a Bakersfield-centric app, but I think it will work mostly for a lot of it in Kern County. It's kind of an interesting app, and it's been improving as they put it out, and we're fortunate to be hosting that webinar on the 15th. A couple things that I really wanted to mention that are happening kind of special to the SBDC, in addition to our one-on-one free business consulting, our training programs that we have a couple special events we're doing this year through our regional office. And one of them is we're bringing in a downtown specialist. And many of you might recall back in the day there was a program called the Main Street Program in California that focused on improving downtowns, particularly in rural areas, but all areas. And that program kind of went away with redevelopment and a few other things. But one of the persons that was really active in that, a woman named Lonnie Locke, was in the Sierra foothills out of Sacramento, I believe in Placer County or somewhere, was really good at this particular consulting resource. And so we're able to contract with her for a week and bring her throughout our region. It'll probably be sometime later in May. I think we're going to be doing a workshop as of today with Tehachapi, but if somebody else wants to do one in the downtown, that'll benefit downtown areas, downtown businesses, and the community, feel free to talk to me. You're getting the first shot at it. I haven't mentioned it to anybody else. So that'll be happening in May. Another resource that we have is we have this really unique specialist that works with restaurants. And I have actually literally worked with him for over 20 years now. He's a gentleman by the name of Tom Bruce and owns the Central Coast Food and Beverage and has been a consultant for a number of years. And he has some really nice tools. He's done a webinar or two with us over the years, but he's got some really nice tools that work on profitability for restaurants. And they also work not only with the profitability side of things, but it can work on also a lot of the other ins and outs of operating a successful restaurant. What we're seeing at the SBDC is, it's just a trend that's now starting, is we're seeing more troubled restaurants as that industry segment tends to, I think it's an indicator of things, but what we're seeing is with minimum wage continuing to go up, even if it is $1 every year, by the time we hit $15 an hour, that restaurant industry is going to be a very troubled industry. You're seeing it out of places that already have the high minimum wage, like Emeryville, California, where restaurants are closing right and left. So we think it's really important to try to get this in front of people and try to get in front of the situation before we're all enjoying $16 hamburgers. So those are a couple of the things. That's about all I have. We do have webinars planned, and you can go to our website at CSUB SBDC. The webinars are free. People view them now more frequently on demand on our YouTube channel than actually live in most cases, which has been kind of a trend that is happening. And that's about all I have. Thanks.
Should I bring the microphone to you, Mike?
Sure.
Thanks.
I'll just walk it back over there. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you for having me. Dr. Marvin, thank you very much. I agree with you. I agree with Jill. This is a spectacular room. One of the best things about Ridgecrest is we're a desert town, but we're also fairly more of a cosmopolitan place than you find in most places in the desert. We have a wonderful college up here, which we're very proud of, and the product they've done for us here at Ridgecrest. And we'll talk about that for a quick minute. But I wanted to thank you personally for being here, and Jill for what she does for this community and the added quality of life that you support. He talked a little bit about being poached by, I say that's a good metric. I think that's pretty good. I mean, that tells me that your supply is matching your demand signal, and so that's a good thing. You talked about change, and I want to talk a little bit about change because you hit the nail right on the head. Things are changing in the world. Things are changing in the college industry. Things are changing in Sacramento, and things are changing in Kern County dramatically and quickly. And we have to be on top of it to gain advantage of what's going on. For example, I believe, you ask me, I think that Sacramento is nuts. I think they're proposing regulations that are directly, specifically targeting Kern County. They're going after our fossil fuel industry. They have plans in place to create a managed decline of the Kern County economy. We're having a big meeting later this week where we've invited some members of the governor's staff to come down and listen to the board of supervisors talk, and they're going to give me the microphone. And I'm going to lay into them. I'm going to suggest that that is a wrong, not the best course of action for the state of California. I think what we saw in the past week, the ability to impact world events was dramatically impacted by the fact that we are energy independent. We are oil independent. If we were not oil independent, we wouldn't have the ability to maneuver like we did last week, just as an example. So I think the fact that the Sacramento's coming after a fossil-free California, I think is not going to have the impact they're hoping for in terms of environmental impact, positive environmental impact. I think it's going to dramatically impact our economy. It's going to sever hundreds and hundreds of jobs. I would say that the Kern County tax revenues is based about 45 to 46% on oil property revenues. And with that decline caused by the governor's, or the Sacramento's policy, you're going to see, that'll have impact up here in Ridgecrest. You're going to see less sheriffs on the street. You're going to see less firefighters in trucks. You're going to see less support services in terms of mental health facilities and capabilities. It's going to dramatically impact Ridgecrest. And why? I don't understand why. I have my own opinion, I won't bore you with those. But I think it's fool's play, and I think it's a direction we don't need to go. Another thing, a challenge ahead of Kern County is water. Richard mentioned it real quickly, Sigma. Another play where environmentalists are impacting decisions, and over here we have a situation with our water where we are a singular source of water. We have an aquifer, that's it. We have no surface flows, we have no canal systems, other than the one we look at, the LA aqueduct that flows on by, which we don't have access to. But in the Central Valley, that's a different story over there. And there is water to be had, and there is water to be moved, but it's not being moved for whatever reason, and as a result, we're going to see hundreds of thousands of acres of arable farmland go toes up because of this policy. So I think our two greatest industries in Kern County are under assault from Sacramento. I think the oil industry is under assault, and I believe that the agriculture is under assault, and we need to be able to turn that into opportunity. So we might not be able to change policy, but we can certainly understand policy and adjust to our reactions to that policy in order to create success. And that's what we need to do. Instead of lamenting bad decisions made by Sacramento, because they're always going to make bad decisions, we can adjust and change and flex and move into places in ways that guarantee a quality of life for the people in Ridgecrest, the people in East Kern, and the people in Kern County as a whole. One of those ways to flex and learn and to turn, lemons into lemonade is Eastern Kern. Eastern Kern is on the veritable edge of being a boom town or a boom area. I don't care if you're in Mammoth or you're down in Mojave or you're farther south or farther north. We can all take advantage from this shift, the shifting sands of Sacramento. We have Space Force that has been signed into legislation by the president. That's going to come with opportunities. Billions of dollars of opportunity where we have right in the middle of East Kern, we have experience, we have knowledge, we know how to launch into exo-atmospheric orbits. We can capitalize on this initiative by the president and compete for capabilities that the Space Force is going to need to have. We need to be able to grab onto that. That's our future. We need to grab onto it. Lithium discoveries in East Kern. Unbelievable what they're discovering down there in terms of opportunity, and what we need to do as East Kern as a coalition of East Kern. We need to be able to get together and leverage the best in each of us in order to create the future we want. Here in China Lake, I mean, we just had those, let's talk about earthquakes. I mean, personally, if you ask me, I think our population should be growing. I'm shocked to hear you say that, because I had a brief by the Board of Realtors yesterday at the Rotary Club, where they said that property values are increasing 5% a year. They say that, one of the reasons they say that is because if you're a person and you have some anxiety about earthquakes, then I suggest you move to Ridgecrest, because we excelled when we had the earthquakes. Get the heck out of those big cities, get the heck out of the coastline, come to Ridgecrest, where we, I wouldn't say we thrived, but we did very well here. We did very, I mean, there were some industries and businesses that retail, that inventories took major hits, and I understand that. We still have people that are concerned about living in an area that still has those shakes, but we survived, and we survived well. Another facet about the earthquakes is the base. The base, and we talked a little bit about the Navy and how the Navy is the main economic driver. 86% of our economy comes from the Navy base. Well, because of Mr. Janis and Mayor Breeden and several other people involved, Congressman McCarthy and several other folks, we're getting significantly reimbursed the costs of rehabilitating that base. You know, we talked about $4 to $5 billion. Dave, what's the final number for damage?
The damage is about $4 billion. I was going to talk about the budget. You want to talk about it now?
No, I'm just going to gloss over it. You can go to it in more
Okay.
detail. But $4 or $5 billion of damage. He and his cohorts have. We've developed resources. We're getting in the next 2 years. He's going to tell us about the money that's coming in. Billions of dollars coming here. We need to capture those dollars as a whole. We know, for example, that a significant amount of those dollars are going to leak out of Kern County, and they're going to go to other places because other places compete better than we do. We need, as Kern County, to compete for those dollars. There's billions at stake. We've got to get together, get the right resources, the right people in the right place, talking to the right folks, creating the right situation where we can keep those dollars here in Kern County. An opportunity to offset the decisions being made in Sacramento. So I'll close. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I want to thank Dr. Marvin. I want to thank Mara. I want to thank Jill for enabling us to do this here. I want to thank you for KEDC and all you do for Kern County. KEDC is sponsoring the State of the County. Next week is the next week, 2 weeks, soon. I invite you all to come. It's a great time where we sit, we talk, we leverage, and we listen to the chairman or the chairwoman this year, Ms. Perez. She will give us a state of affairs, and she will describe Kern County as a whole, and where our strengths are, where we need to focus. And it's an interesting evening, and Kern County is always represented, but the more the merrier. I talked a little bit about Sacramento. Excuse me if I have an opinion about it. I don't mean to come across in a political way. I'm coming across as someone who wants to see Kern County succeed, and sometimes decisions get made that aren't in the best interest of Kern County, and when that happens, sorry, I have an opinion. Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much for all you do. I'm available for you anytime, anywhere. My office is here. Gronk is here. Christine is my newest and latest and greatest superstar that we're grooming for Kern County, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so thankful you guys came here from Kern County. Let's go get them. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's going to be, they're going to listen to us, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Governor staff's
Sacramento.
coming down.
Okay, wonderful. So if you all, whoever can be there, please do. A really important watershed time. So District 2. I'll put it up there, okay?
That's fine. I'm pretty loud, so I don't.
You're pretty loud.
I don't want to blow everybody out here. Good afternoon. At the introductions, I will repeat myself a little bit. My name is Laura Lynn Wyatt. I am the Second Supervisor Zach Scrivener's field representative. Supervisor Gleason, thank you for letting me tip my toe into District 1. It's the first time I've done that for Supervisor Scrivener, and thank you for not implementing some type of college hazing ritual or something. I appreciate it. You've made me feel very welcome.
Stand by.
Thank you. Supervisor Gleason touched on something that I just want to piggyback a little bit. The leadership in Sacramento has put policies in place that are attacking Kern County's natural resources. And last year, Oil and gas alone contributed 9.1 billion with a B, to the county. That's huge, right? So Kern County produces 80% of the oil and 46% of the gas for the state. The legislators and the rule makers in Sacramento are putting policies in place that Supervisor Gleason touched on that are going to have massive impacts to our natural resources. With the loss of jobs, all the way down to the barista that makes coffee for people that are employed by the oil and gas industry, the barber who cuts their hair. The impact of this is catastrophic, so I cannot encourage you enough to reach out, attend the meeting on the 14th. You do have to reserve a chair, I believe. I heard a rumor that 70 to 80 additional chairs will be in the chambers to try to accommodate this. So it's very, very important. A couple other things I wanted to touch on just a little bit. The Kern County Planning Department continues to have 18 plus very large projects in the works that are requiring EIRs. So the Planning Department is extremely busy for the county. And in the last 3 years, 5,000 new jobs were added to our county through new and growing and thriving business. Kern County is the place to relocate your business. So that's all I had for today. Thank you.
So let's see, next is the County of Kern, Teresa Hitchcock.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Teresa Hitchcock with Economic and Workforce Development for Kern County. I'm just going to say a couple of things about the workforce side of the house before I turn it over to the folks who actually work in the field in East Kern for our department. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the upcoming Career Expo. So there's a Kern County Career Expo, and what this is for is to get high school students interested in jobs that actually exist here in Kern County. And as we heard, we have a lot of issues facing the county right now. So for those of you in government, I would highly encourage you to participate in this and try to get some of those best and brightest minds that we have in our county right now interested in being the future of government here in order to solve some of those issues that we see on the horizon. It's really important that we kind of quell the brain drain that we've seen from some of our students thinking that there's greener pastures in other communities, and really try to keep those folks who are familiar with our county, who know us best, here to try to solve some of those problems. And I'd like to commend, Cerro Coso is a huge asset to this area. The ability for kids to stay here and actually get an education and contribute back to their home community is tremendous. So I hope everyone realizes what a great workforce development asset Cerro Coso is, and how important it is to have that as part of your community. And I know I was talking to them earlier, and there's so much more that we can do to partner with them and to make sure that we're helping the workforce in this area meet the demands of businesses as you develop new businesses coming into the area. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my economic development team, and I think, Amanda, do you want to go first since you're sitting closest?
Okay, so I am Amanda Barnes. I do economic development in Mojave for the County of Kern. Some recent updates that are Mojave specific include the airport is booming. The airport is doing very, very well. The airport itself, not including the tenants, have made some major improvements to their radar, to their tower. They've got multiple grants coming in from the FAA over a period of a few years to upgrade and update their taxiways and their runways, and which is all very needed. Some of this stuff hasn't been updated for 50 years, and it's allowing them to remain competitive in the space field, space exploration field, rockets and everything like that. So they're doing very, very well. I've had the opportunity to work with the airport on a few different projects, trying to help them get things that they need. One thing that they identified fairly early on last year was that they need access to a daycare. They wanted to develop a daycare to help retain some of their employees, because retention is a really difficult thing for them, with Plant 42 being 30 minutes away, Edwards Air Force Base is 30 minutes away. So we've been pursuing methods and to help them to develop a daycare, and we're in a pretty good spot where they're doing a financial analysis and trying to get buy-in from some of the tenants. Should that happen, we will fully be able to move forward and start on like the ground leasing and building of a facility. So that's actually something really exciting for a small place like Mojave where there isn't any daycare. I know a lot of us come from other places where that's, you know, right down the street, that's something readily available for the working families, but for Mojave, that isn't something that is available. So should we be able to make that happen, it'll be really great. Some other projects I've been working on with the chamber, we're still working on moving the caboose. The goal after the caboose is moved is to develop that lot into a community-oriented place where we can have farmers markets, maybe, you know, recruit in some taco trucks, food trucks, you know, once a week, and have community little events, pumpkin patches, things like that, that can maybe get more of the community active with the community. Because that is something that Mojave is greatly lacking. Aside from that, we're going to be participating in the general plan update. We've been asked to contribute for the East Kern portion of economic development, so I might have further updates on that. I've never done it. It's going to be new and exciting, but I do feel that we've developed pretty great relationships with our respective communities to be able to find out what they strongly think that is needed that we can try to tie into that plan development. So that's about it for me.
Thank you.
Suzette Caulfield. I handle the Indian Wells Valley area for economic development for Kern County. There have been a few things since our last meeting that I've been actively involved in. We have the opportunity in our area to start looking at storing energy off of the power grid, and we in Ridgecrest actually have someone who's looking at tying into one of our substations and creating a opportunity to store energy in a very large and expensive building. This type of thing would not bring a lot of employees in to our area, but it would bring in the property tax value of that. So a facility like this, I was quoted, it would come in around $50 million, so the tax base would be significant. We had the opportunity late last year to work with the Economic Development Administration. They have grants available. I spoke to them in November, and there's a project of creating a innovation center here in Ridgecrest. They're very willing to be looking at their share being around $3 million. And if we can find a location here in our community to be able to set up that type of thing, the government, city, or a government entity, or a nonprofit can be on the other side of it. So this is something that we're working on. It's just kind of getting off the ground, but wanted to let you know we are working on it and have some offers to help from some of you, which I appreciate. Local housing needs, we are going to be challenged both for short-term and long-term housing. I know that Scott O'Neill, Dave Janik, the city, we're all working together to try to make sure that we have the housing that we need for not only the community who will be living here and staying here, but also for the expected contractors and their employees who will be coming into town. So there are some opportunities. We have some mobile home parks that aren't full at this point in time. And one of the things that is being looked at is bringing in mobile homes, setting them up and having them available to rent when the workers are here. And then when they're gone, when they've moved out, now we still have additional housing that can stay here. They won't leave with the workers. That housing would still be here. And it would be something that would be supportive of our seniors and our lower income people in town. Was at a meeting about 5 months ago, and the question came up. It was after the earthquakes here. Question came up as to why doesn't Ridgecrest get information from Bakersfield? Why doesn't East Kern get TV coverage from the Bakersfield area? All of our news comes from LA, and my understanding is most of East Kern is that way. And so I've started a dialogue with certain people with the FCC and trying to find out what is possible for us to be able to get connected to the rest of Kern County. And this would impact all of East Kern. Some of you may be perfectly happy with the LA stations, but one of the things we found was that when we watch TV, we watch the commercials and the advertisements from mostly LA. We don't have that opportunity to advertise our businesses and our activities to our community. So this is going to be baby steps. It probably won't be taken care of within the year, but I'd like to see if there's a way that we can start connecting East Kern more with West Kern and keeping the information going between us and the advertising.
May I ask a question? Would that have something to do with your cable companies though? So I live in Tehachapi and I get East Kern, I get Bakersfield channels. So I'm wondering
It depends on where you live. There's a map, there's a line drawn. Most of East Kern gets their information from LA, the LA stations. We don't get any Bakersfield stations here. Excuse me, there's a government channel that every once in a while you can watch them talking about what's happening in Kern County, but we don't have that opportunity. So how do you tell other businesses in the area that you're here and can be supportive of them if they don't have the opportunity to advertise through TV specifically? So that's something I'm going to follow up on, and anybody who'd like to join me, please feel free to join. It's probably going to be a complicated thing and would appreciate any additional help. Carrie Crutcher is from the RACVB. You can stand. Okay. She's the young lady who is making sure that the new California Welcome Center here in Ridgecrest is staying on track and looking at opening mid-year, correct?
We're shooting for a grand opening of July. Because the earthquakes happened last 4th and 5th of July, we're shooting to do like a 1 year, here we are, Ridgecrest, that kind of a thing, just as far as press and public relations. But just really quickly, the state of California has a network of 17 or 18 visitor centers statewide, and they market each area, and so we have been awarded that by the state. So we're going to be opening newer, bigger. It's going to be high tech. It's going to be very visitor experience centric. So we're going to have like a virtual reality experience, just something that will hopefully drive traffic, pull travelers off the highway. We'll have signage on the highway. It's always a challenge to get those people off 395 into town. So it's going to be good. And yeah, we're shooting for a grand opening of hopefully early July.
The nice thing is not only will our information for East Kern be there, but the information from other areas will be here for them for visitors to look at. Well, in return, our information will start being even more available at some of the other visitor centers that are in the state. So if you as a community have certain flyers, brochures, things like that, that you find are important to share with your tourists, please make sure that Carrie gets those by, yes?
Springtime, maybe we could connect with springtime. We'll be the only welcome center in Kern County. There isn't currently one, so we really want to focus on everything that Kern County has to offer, not just the Ridgecrest area.
So talk to you, she'll be around, I think, afterwards. So a couple more things. One of the things that we're finding is being a real struggle is finding trade workers, construction trade workers. And I'm a general contractor, so construction is very, I grew up in a construction family. It's very important to me. And it's very sad to see so many young people not getting the opportunity to learn whether construction is their thing. And one of the things that I'm hoping to help with is getting a training center started or some classes started at Cerro Coso that could help support plumbing, electricians, general contractors. Those things are all needed. We're going to face the need right now, and we're going to continue to face that need. Oil workers coming off, most likely, from not being able to work at the oil fields. So maybe we can look at retraining them into the construction trades. So that's that. And then makerspaces, I think we're looking at makerspaces getting set up in the next 2 to 4 months, maybe. So we're looking forward to that. I had the opportunity to look at the makerspace or the center that was on base in December, and I was really impressed. And I actually got some information from some of those young people who are running that center, and looking forward to them helping with our Ridgecrest makerspace when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Boron, I know Nathan here from Rio Tinto. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
Or more than a few?
Once again, we are sponsoring the State of the County event on January 29th. So we look forward to that. Another, what we like to consider a very large milestone in our industry is that Rio Tinto, and it's over 145 years, we finally achieved 1 full year without 1 fatality. So that's a very large milestone for the mining industry. So we're quite excited for celebrating that this new year. So
Is that just here or?
this is globally with 50,000 employees in over 100 countries. So it's a big milestone for a company like ours.
Congratulations.
Thanks for sponsoring.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We have California City. I know Alexia couldn't make it, but anybody from California City? Going once? Okay. And next we have Kern River Valley. Justin?
Well, first I'd like to thank Richard for giving me an update for me. I'm Justin Powers. I'm from Kern River Valley. We've there are a lot of the other cities and towns that are represented here, but we're trying to do some big things. As Richard mentioned, we did open the first co-working space in Eastern Kern County. What we're really trying to drive towards is a place where you can work where you play. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Kern River Valley, it is just a mecca for outdoor activity. There is world-class whitewater, world-class mountain biking. We've got an amazing lake, and it's real, and adjacent to the Sequoia National Park. A lot you can do up there, and so we're really trying to start to target these high-paid, highly talented workers that maybe aren't really into living in their little cages in the large cities. Instead, living in a place that has space and all this kind of opportunity. As Richard mentioned, we're also kicking off a new enterprise called Fire Vision. And part of what I want to talk about with that is the reason we picked a firefighting solution as what we're building is because the Kern River Valley, for those of you who are very knowledgeable about it, probably has more wildland firefighters per capita than probably anywhere else you can find. We've just got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and if we marry that up with some technology and some innovation, we've got a niche there to take from us. So the first thing we're building is a drone-based thermal imaging platform, but there's going to be a lot more coming. And so that's really my personal vision for the Kern River Valley. That's something that we're shooting driving towards. We also want to invite everybody up to Kernville on President's Day weekend. We have a Whiskey Flat Days. It's a lot of fun. We're adding in some new amenities. We're going to have event-wide Wi-Fi and some other stuff, but it's certainly a lot of fun. So I'd like to see all of you there. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Rosamond, I don't know how you're going to film yourself and speak.
No, I'm going to ask.
I'm ready to watch.
I'm going to ask outgoing supervisor to become part of the media and just aim that at me.
I told John we should get him a tripod. Your arms must hurt.
Oh my God, frightening. Thank you. See what it's like to be part of the media, supervisor?
Yeah. No thanks.
I've taken your picture so many times.
Yeah. Break the camera all the time.
Rosamond, a new pharmacy, Egyptian Kareem Boutos, young man that worked for Rite Aid for 6 years locally, decided to hang out his own shingle. We encourage him to do that, and it's a new pharmacy on the east side of town. A new Napa Auto Parts store. 90% of the shelves are stocked. A young group wanting to compete with the other auto parts store on the west side of town. This is on Diamond Street. And the Kern supervisors wanted Jimmy Johnson to fill the vacant seat on the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council. Jimmy Johnson was a football hero at Rosamond, then went to Oregon State, was a football hero, came back and worked for the Southern Kern Unified School District for many, many years. Went away mad with everybody. Now all of a sudden he's come back into public life. We're very happy to see him back because he's very qualified. And finally, Dick Rutan will be in Rosamond tonight at 5 o'clock at the Wanda Kirk Library to promote his new book. His new book is called The Next 5 Minutes, and he goes through his whole life as a test pilot and highlights incidences where he could face imminent danger, death, and talks about the next 5 minutes in his life. His book is very interesting. I read the whole thing. It presents him in a completely different way. If you don't know Dick Rutan, you think he's standoffish or harsh. But you read the book and you find out He has 4 daughters. He has 4 wives too. Nonetheless, he's a real person. And so if you get a chance to be in Rosamond tonight at 5 o'clock, he'll be at the Wanda Kirk Library.
Good job.
I'll probably get an award for this.
Thank you, Richard. There we are. Want to go through a few things with the city of Tehachapi. Once again, Corey Costello, Economic Development Coordinator. First of all, housing prices from Supervisor Gleason brought it up here in Ridgecrest, going up about 5% a year. Last year in Tehachapi in the city, we saw a 7% sales increase from about 20,000 from 257 in the median price to 277. A lot of that's due to inventory because some of the inventory is lacking, and we are building out the few tracks that were active. We do have one more we have one that's just about to release the public EIR, which will be probably at some point this month. And that's a 1,000 unit mixed use development, really hinging on East Kern for the reason why they're building, because of the innovative jobs out here, the renewables, the military, the aerospace, and they've worked with Edwards Air Force Base. And so a lot of what's happening is East Kern is sparking that housing development because people want to live in Tehachapi and commute to East Kern. So that was a big part of the home sales. 14 million in building permits in 2019, which was slightly down from 2018, which was 20 million because we had a $10 million Walmart project in 2018 to sort of skew the numbers. But there was also the $6.5 million from Town Place Suites by Marriott, which broke ground in December of 2019. So solid and consistent with the building permit values. 124 new business licenses last year. And those are important because those are, not all of them are people opening a brand new location, store, office. A lot of them are home-based businesses. Those are the entrepreneurs that start in their garage and they get a city business tax certificate. And at that point, it's for us, we kind of just, we know who they are. And a lot of those folks end up opening offices and opening retail locations down the road. So it is third straight year we've had over 100 new licenses filed in the city. Village Co. is under construction. It is the co-working space Richard alluded to earlier. It's going to be co-working along with office suites. There's going to be sort of a public use kind of maker space. We waited a little long for the county promised maker space, so we're going to let the public sector solve the problem and open that up. So the private sector, going to open that up. So we're going to have, that's going to be part of that. It'll be a financial institution and a cafe as all part of this space. And it is a downtown renovation project. Very excited. Some of you who came to the last meeting we had in Tehachapi for East Kern was at the Whirlwind Solar's headquarters. The Cummings family they designed that building and own it. They also own this building as well. So if you saw what the Cummings were able to do with WWS, it's going to be probably even, I've been in the demo side so far, and it's pretty amazing what they are doing in that facility, so I can't wait to see it. And education, it's fitting that you were here at Cerro Coso, the Tehachapi campus. We are very proud of what has happened in Tehachapi in just my 2 years and change. It continues to grow. There's a new police academy starting this year. Very excited about that. Local law enforcement is very excited about being able to tap into some of the talent, expanding faculty, expanding course offerings, leasing more and more space. It seems like every semester there's one more classroom being rented in what was the old Tehachapi Education Center. I went to junior high there, but now it's it was the high school, then the junior high, now it's a junior college. So anyway, they're doing extremely well. I'm very happy to see good work, and the class offerings are really matching with what we have to offer in East Kern. So that is something in terms of job growth and job creation. Panda Express submitted on the retail side and the restaurant side, they submitted their plan check application to the city. It's been about a 3-year process in partnership. Things that come back from working with them at ICSC shows and things like that. They don't franchise their stores. They're all corporate owned. So that's why they grow a little slower, because they don't just open up the franchise offering and hope somebody can succeed. So it's been a little while on that one, but it's about right. The average time is working with a large group like that, but they're going to be located on the northwest corner of our Walmart that opened last summer. About 2,800 square feet, 1,000 of which will be interior dining, plus a drive-through as well. And they're expected to open in November of this year, so we'll see. And then it was brought up earlier about food trucks. We actually have a food truck success story. We had a Tacos El Superior. They have a taco truck in Lancaster, Palmdale, very, very popular apparently. Well, popular enough they were able to shell out $1 million in change to buy the Dunkin' Donuts in Tehachapi and turn it into Tacos El Superior, their first brick and mortar location. They've been looking in the Antelope Valley for years, couldn't find the right spot, and they came and checked out Tehachapi and said, this feels right. So they are starting their process to renovate that building, and hopefully within the next 2 months should be open for business. So a very cool success story from sort of incubator from food truck to shingle. And then this last one just came out yesterday. It's a business outside of the city limits, but it's something we're working with the county and then Greater Tehachapi Economic Development Council with. Revol is a Minnesota-based indoor growing vegetables, lettuce, that sort of thing. Sun Select Produce is currently out in the Cummings Valley area of Tehachapi. They have a giant indoor greenhouse. They have some outdoor farming as well. This Revol company out of Minnesota has come in, and they're going to be taking over a lot of the operations with Sun Select. So we're going to be meeting with them the next couple of weeks. It's a very interesting agricultural economy they've created, and that has a big impact on city business as well. So that's it, Richard. That's all I got.
Great, thank you, Corey. Well, you can see a lot is going on in East Kern, and so we're excited. We know the challenges, but also opportunities moving forward. So that member comments. Anybody? Maybe even Cal, but anyone have a? Oh, Dave.
I'll just do it from here. I won't be long. Mick teed me up, pretty honest with the Channel Lake Alliance, and just for clarity, although Channel Lake is under name, I do not, and we do not represent the base. John Kersey represents the base. He's sitting next to me. I'm a former employee there, full disclosure. What we do is advocate for the base, the Navy's mission on the base, and the community, Ridgecrest, Indian Wells Valley, where the majority of the workforce resides. And like Edwards, it's a little bit different base than other bases, but it is part of the East Kern technology hub, aerospace in particular, stretching from Edwards up through Mojave. Mick mentioned Mojave, and others have the spaceport and airport. They're up to Channel Lake, and all of us have worked in space. I'll come back to that for a second. As you know, and I gave the update of the last one of these, that we had roughly $4 billion in damage. That is still being refined. It will continue to be refined as they learn more and get the costing estimates down back from the efforts. But we had no funding to do reconstruction of major hangars, laboratories, etc., that were either damaged or hangars and laboratories that were essentially destroyed and had to be replaced. And that was all mostly the buildings that were 40s, 50s, 60s construction, and all the newer construction came through a 6.4 epicenter and a 7.1 epicenter bracketing the base on each side on the base. Well, they put in the numbers. The Navy, first off, the Navy supported Channel Lake and said, we are going to rebuild. The mission at Channel Lake can't be done elsewhere. We're going in with the full requests. We're going to go in over a 2-year period in fiscal year 20, the one we're in. We're going to put in for $627 million in repairs and small construction and $1.15 billion in major construction called MILCON, military construction. Mick gave me credit, gave the mayor credit. There's a lot more. The mayor deserves the most credit because of the relationships she established with 3 people. 1, Kevin McCarthy, that she already had a good, strong relationship. 2, Senator Feinstein, who she calls at 6 in the morning on Saturdays. There's a good story. Ask her about that one and about hanging up on President Trump, too. That's another good story for a social setting. The third one, Senator Feinstein and Governor Newsom, his name has come up not so pleasantly in a couple places earlier in this discussion. But he, in fact, the three of them vowed bipartisan support to rebuild the community and China Lake in particular, and they followed through it. Working through the governor's military council, we had all the information flowing into the governor. In his role, he got that information to the entire California delegation, Republican and Democrat, House and Senate. And so we had full bipartisan support, almost unheard of these days, that went into the Defense Department bill votes the 19th and the preceding week of December, just before Christmas. And in fact, that full money was authorized, $627 for FY20, $1.152 billion for FY20, but in the major construction, and on top of that, something that had been in for a long time and languishing, which was $45 million for a military construction project to extend the runways and taxiways on one of the 3 runways, and they're switching that to become one of the main runways. So $1.8 billion roughly in FY21. Now here's the unheard of part based on that bipartisan support. They reached into fiscal year 21 appropriations and granted the Navy's request for an additional 1.216 something. That brings to and they granted that. Now we have to get that authorized this year, but that's much easier than getting appropriated, especially next year in a election contested year in which the budget will be even harder than it was this year. So if you think about it, that's $3 billion that the government, with bipartisan support, stood up in strong support of our economic engine in northeast Kern County out here, China Lake. That is a huge message to the developers. It's a huge message to all of East Kern about the stability of us. It's 85% of the economy. It's going to end up being more. When that base gets done, and it's going to take 5 to 7 years to implement all this. There will be additional monies coming in FY21 for minor construction as well. We don't even have the request for that, but we're probably talking, as Mick said, around $4 billion total. That would be a state-of-the-art facility where they don't do that. They don't invest $4 billion, $3 billion already, $4 billion if there isn't a viable future for future work like F-35, etc. So we are healthy and growing out there. It's a huge signal to our citizens in the valley, all of us here in East Kern, and to the developers now, and some of those that were waiting to see, hey, we know the Navy up here in this valley is 85% or drives 85% of the economy. We're not going to build or put our money here till we know that economic engine is safe. Well, it's not only safe, it's burgeoning now, and it will be burgeoning. Now that gives us we have a problem we face now, which is swallowing that boom and making it productive so that it isn't just transient and temporary. We've got housing issues, we've got construction crew housing issues, we've got trades. So how do we structure that, the city working with the community agencies and the base, to make sure that we're able to capture a lot more of the tax revenue from that and build it so that we don't have a big rat inside the snake that works its way down the snake. We want to have a fatter snake at the end too. We want to sustain some of this, to use a really bad metaphor. Anyway, that's the challenge we have before us, because it's 85% of the economy, but we don't get any tax from the base. So we've talked about in this forum before, the city really receives among the lowest per capita property tax to run the city, not just property tax revenues, period, anywhere. We're right at the bottom with several other communities that are very similar. They're rural, remote, with a military base. Well, here's a way we can capitalize on that and come out the other end stronger, bigger, growing, and feed that East Kern economic engine. Now, also in that spring, according to a meeting that was held about that same time in San Diego, where almost all the contracting for this is run out of San Diego and then directed from DC. So that money's coming. We won't see a big uptick, although there are already lots of projects going on and repair work, et cetera, that didn't have to wait. You can't find trades in this valley, as was said. That's part of the reason. Anybody try to find a roofer in this valley? If you find one, it's at least a year. And we found out from the rains last week that maybe some of us need it. Let me give kudos to one other person in this. Obviously, the China Lake Alliance worked this, but the EDC, Economic Development Corporation, also has contacts and consultants that they brought to bear on this and helped sustain it through that long time when it looked like we weren't going to have a federal budget. So the good news is DOD, the United States government stands behind the base, the value of the base. They're putting in $3 billion already, probably will end up at $4 billion. That's good news for the future. Space Force, we're a part of that. Most of our communities, I'm not sure everybody knows, signed out a letter that touted East Kern and talked about Edwards, Mojave, Air and Spaceport, China Lake, and I think we brought in Tehachapi and some of the work out there as well in those letters of support. Congressman McCarthy had a Marine Corps major, an Air Force major working in his office up until 2 weeks ago. She has now been reassigned to the new Space Force Development Legislative Team. We know her, we have contacts with her. Think about that. This is the value of how you work community advocacy. So now we have a voice for East Kern into the Space Force legislative office. And remember, the Space Force, the way they did that in the bill was, you know how the Navy, the Department of the Navy runs both the Navy and the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps reports to the civilian leadership of the Department of the Navy. Space Force was stood up in the same fashion inside the office of the Secretary of the Air Force. So they're a separate service, just like the Marine Corps, but they'll report to the Air Force. So right now they're still wearing Air Force uniforms. So we have a voice in there. We have a good future set up on this. This is a good lead into where we want to go for the future economic engine for Kern overall and East Kern. Last comment on demographics. Over 60% of the workforce, between 60 and 70% of the workforce at China Lake used to look like me. We all retired. Right now, over 70% of the workforce out there has been on board for 10 years. The demographics on the base, which drive the demographics in the valley, are changing. Your youngsters are coming. The school district, Dave, I'll tell you, I think Dave had to leave. The school district is seeing an uptick. They'll work their way up to you, and you're going to have increasing again. So you're not static or eating your own folks as you get them diplomas. So I think the college has a great future, and it needs to be a partner and part of the aerospace side of this too. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Hi.
We really appreciate it, and we will see you in 2 months on March the 12th.
Can I just say one
Yes.
thing real quick?
Sure.
I just want to introduce myself again. My name is Jennifer Marshall, and I know I told you that I'm a job development specialist here at Cerro Coso. I just want to invite you all to reach out to me, reach out to our website, and look and see what all Cerro Coso has to offer in their Career Center. I don't only work with the students here at Cerro Coso. I work with all of the people in our community, helping them to find jobs, helping them to create their resumes, to do their career planning and their career searching. So I just wanted to say thank you guys all for the work that you do and to invite you to reach out to me. Again, my name is Jennifer. Thank you.